Imagine being 17 years old and your family marrying you off to a man who is 3 decades older than you and essentially abandoning you. Welcome to Chellee's Files, and I'm your host Chelsea, and today we take a deep dive into the brutal murder of 17-year-old Gaala Aden Abdi. Gaala and her family, which included her mother and stepfather, lived in the Gaala refugee camp, which is part of the Dadaab refugee camp in Wajir County, Kenya. Residents of this camp often experience extreme economic hardships, often lacking the various necessities needed for survival. As a result, many families resort to marrying off their underage daughters in exchange for the bride price that they obtain. This includes financial compensation, cattle that they can sell, cattle that can be used for food, and that is exactly what Gaala's family did. Gaala's family didn't inform her of the marriage, and she was rather abducted under the cover of darkness and transported 150 kilometers away to Wara, which is a remote village in a locality known as Adamasajd. Upon meeting her to-be husband, Mohammed Qasim Tifo, Gaala vehemently opposed the union. The man was 55 years old and she was only 17 years old, barely an adult. As a result of Gaala opposing the union, she was held captive for 27 days, where she was subjected to extreme physical torture by her supposed husband and his relatives. In those 27 days, Gaala experienced physical abuse, verbal abuse. She was denied food. Essentially, she was stripped of her human dignity just because she didn't want to marry a man 38 years older than her. On the days leading up to her death, Gaala managed to obtain a phone which she used to send desperate voice recordings to her mother. She forced that her husband and her relatives were forcibly beating her into submission. She also stated that the person she was married to was not a man. Every sunset when she gets to the house, she gets beaten. She even questioned her mother, saying, "Why does this man get your support every time, while no one gives me the support, no one is coming to my rescue?" Little did Amina Abdi Noor, Gaala's mother, know this would be the last time she would ever hear her daughter's voice. The events of the night of March 22nd, 2025 are shrouded in fakeness. This is largely because the perpetrators refused to cooperate with the police. It is, however, reported that on that night, Mohammed and two of his relatives physically abused Gaala, as had become the norm in the household. They took turns beating her, verbally abusing her, and even stabbed her multiple times. This went on for a long period into the night, and eventually Gaala was no more. You would think that this man would stop this brutal act there, but no. They continued to butcher her body, and then they placed her body, her bag, and all her belongings on top of a mattress, and they set it on fire, all in an attempt to conceal this heinous crime. Gaala's body was found lying outside a rental house with 100-degree burns. Medics also noted that her spine was terribly injured and they remarked that even if she survived, chances of recovery would be extremely slim. Amina Abdi Noor and Gaala's stepfather received news about Gaala's early demise from a relative, and they proceeded with an extremely hasty burial. This essentially limited police officers as they couldn't perform an official postmortem to determine the actual cause of death. In April 2025, however, the Directorate of Criminal Investigations managed to obtain a court order to exhume Gaala's body. This was to enable them to perform an official postmortem. The results of the postmortem largely found what was already fact, that she was physically tortured, then set ablaze afterwards. It is also reported that Gaala's family and the family of Mohammed Qasim Tifo attempted to settle the matter out of court using a traditional compensation method known as the Maslaha system. However, this was firmly opposed by human rights activists, as survivors or victims of gender-based violence rarely ever get justice under this system. At the time of upload, investigations are still ongoing. Gaala's story could have easily been avoided if her family and society didn't simultaneously fail her. Marrying her off to a man 38 years her senior is not only a moral injustice but also a constitutional one. The influence her family portrayed to her pleas was also a failing, and if they had easily gone to visit Gaala or even facilitated a separation, Gaala would still be alive here today. Gaala had dreams. She wanted a future for herself. She was actively working towards that, and it was all taken from her far too early. It is our hope that Gaala is able to obtain the justice she so rightfully deserves.